Own property. Oregon man was convicted and sent to jail for collecting and using rainwater on his own property, sued by the state for theft. Rancher Gary Harrington built 3 large reservoirs on his own land to collect rainwater and snow melt. He claimed the water was primarily for fire protection reserves and for providing water to wildlife. But the state called it theft and prosecuted Gary. A municipal code stipulates that all water within city limits, including precipitation, is part of the public water supply. The city requested the court order the removal of his collection system and impose a fine. Despite Harrington's repeated appeals, arguing, the water fell on my land, I'm not selling it. I'm simply using it on my own property. The court ultimately rejected his claims. Harrington was found guilty on multiple charges, including unlawful appropriation of state water resources. He was sentenced to 30 days in jail and fined over $1,500. The incident sparked intense backlash. Residents said it was simply tyranny. If a person cannot own the rain that falls on their own land, what do they actually own?
So we're just not as free as we think we are we? You can't collect rainwater, can't hunt without a license, can't fish without a license, can't drive without a license, can't travel without a license, can't fly without a license, but you can vote without a license, right? So there is that, I guess.
Oregon man was
Shalom. Giving all the praises, honor, and the glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Racha HaKodash, and double honors to my apostles, the elders, and the teachers, the bishops of Great Millstone, who rule well. And peace, love, mercy, and salutations to all you sincere brothers, and shalom to you few sisters. Now, as you heard, man, okay, showing you, okay, this man is the devil, all right? And, you know, he wants to be in power and in control of every single thing, okay? When it comes to certain things that is, you know, natural that the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Shai created, all right? If you try to benefit off of the earth without Esau Edom's knowledge, and when he finds out, you know, he's going to bring, you know, that hammer upon you, man. The scriptures call him, okay, the hammer of the earth. You see? You know, here it is, the earth is, you know, about 70% water, all right? But yet, you know, this man went, all right, to find this individual and lock him up in jail for 30 days, okay, and give him a $2,000 fine, I believe, okay, or 1,500, whatever, all right, for the simple fact that he was collecting rainwater, all right, and using it on his property, which, you know, I use that word loosely, his property. It's not really his, man. Here it is, you know, you got a so-called property that you bought, but yet you're still paying taxes on it, property tax, okay? So really, you don't own that property, you know? You got a land and, you know, you want to build, you know, a garden on that land. You got to go get a permit, okay? Without that permit, all right, you can't do anything on that land, even though it's so-called yours, okay? This is the Western world, man. Okay, this is why, you know, these empires have all crashed because of unrighteous, you know, decrees, okay? You see? The Lord created, you know, the earth to be beautiful, and, you know, there's a lot of things in which we can benefit off of the earth, you know, something as simple as water. The scriptures even say that we're going to drink our water by measure, man, okay? Because this devil, okay, he wants to have control and power over everything. You can't even, soon you'll get taxed for breathing, man, okay? You see, and this is the world that we live in, man. This is why everyone is mourning, as the scriptures say, when the wicked are in authority, the people mourn, man. Okay, and as this individual mentioned, you know, you got to get a license to go fishing. You got to get a license to drive a vehicle. You know, you want to fly, you got to get a license for that too, or a passport, which the word license means permission. You know, you want to cross the border, you got to get a permission from who? From this devil. And this is why the scriptures say that what? You should go unto him, okay, in want of all things. Really, this is a curse. What we have to go through is a curse. Okay? You see? And of course, this man, you know, he went to court, you know, to fight it. But the court is against him. And there's a lot of things in which, you know, the Lord had given the knowledge, all right, to certain people, all right, on how to be able to, you know, for example, you know, this one individual was able to use, I believe, figure out how to use used plastic, for fuel. Okay, you see, for fuel. Or another individual was able to use, I believe, water for fuel. Okay, and before you know it, these people have disappeared, and they knew they were gonna disappear as well. Okay, because whenever you come up with these inventions, all right, if it takes money out of Esau Edom's pocket, you best believe he's gonna remove you, man. Okay, this is Satan, okay, in which we're dealing with here, man. All right, let's get a precept, because you gotta understand, man. We're dealing with high level of witchcraft, man. Okay, these people are a bunch of witches and warlocks. Okay, and when you interrupt what they got going on, they will come down at you hard, man. Okay, there's a precept, all right, I believe in the book of Ecclesiasticus, and let's actually search it up here real quick. Ecclesiasticus chapter 14 verse 9, it says, a covetous man's eye is not satisfied with his portion. This explains this devil to a T. All right, he's never satisfied. He's always going around, all right, taking what does not belong to him, all right, bringing forth death and destruction upon the people, that be of that land, all right, because he's never satisfied, all right, with his portion. The Lord, divided the nations. He gave everyone their land, all right, and within those lands, you have certain, resources, all right, that would benefit you, all right. But Esau wants everybody's portion because he's not satisfied with his own. Okay. Something as simple as collecting rainwater, all right, which, is highly benefit, all right, or beneficial to your plants, all right, you name it. Okay. He's upset at that. He doesn't want you to do that even. Okay. It says, and the iniquity of the wicked drieth up his soul. So like, yeah. And the iniquity of the wicked drieth up his soul. You see? Let's get that in the GNT real quick here. All right. This is Sirach chapter 14 verse 9, or Slack verse 8 in the GNT. It says, a selfish person is evil. He turns his own back on people's needs, man. Yo, this is beautiful, man. Again, a selfish person is evil. He turns his back on people's needs. Okay? And is never satisfied with what he has. Greed will shrivel up a person's soul. Some people are too stingy to put up bread on their own table because he wants to eat yours. Okay? He doesn't want anything, all right? He doesn't want you to have anything, man. Okay? And if you were to have something, he has to know. He wants to be able to give you the permission, okay, for you to have it. Without him giving you permission, it's like, it bothers him. You see? That's his devil, man. And this is why we need Yahweh Shai. Because the scriptures clearly say that the world was made for our sakes. Why do we not enjoy the inheritance thereof? Let's get that. Okay. Made for our sakes. Okay, in the book of the book of 2nd Ezra, all right, chapter 6, verse 58, it says, but we thy people whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thy only begotten, and thy fervent lover, are given into their hands. Who's they? The Edomites. Okay. If the world not be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? Okay, so we know it's not going to be, very long, though we tarry, wait for it. Okay, we are coming, okay, to the end of this man's rulership. Okay, and so the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is going to allow us to actually enjoy the fatness of the earth, man. Okay, let's get the scripture about the hammer of the earth. Okay, how the book of Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 23, how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? Okay, because when you look at, the power in which this man has, okay, to those that don't believe in the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua and these scriptures and the prophecies that's written within, okay, they can't see this man, getting taken down, man. Okay, you see, they can't see past, all right, a kingdom without the Edomites being in a position of rulership. So how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder? How is Babylon come to a desolation among the nations? The Lord is going to do that, man. Okay? You see? The Lord is going to do that. Because the scriptures talk about how that the Lord will return and take the kingdom forever. He's going to take the crowns of all of these nations, man. Okay? It says, I have laid a snare for thee. You see? Because the Lord talked about what? That he's going to come, okay? And, in their own craftiness, the Lord is going to, take them down, man. All right? I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon. Okay, Babylon meaning confusion, Babal, all right? America as well, that's what it's known for, all right? Bitterness, you see? And thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught because thou hast striven against the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. The Lord hath opened his armory, okay, and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation, righteous anger, okay? For this is the work of the Lord Yahweh of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans, man. Okay, the Chaldeans going into the children of Edom, Idumeans, all right, Amalek, okay, which are the top elites, man. Okay, now the book of Ezekiel, chapter 4, verse 11, it says, thou shalt drink also water by measure. Bottles of water, man. It says, the sixth part of a hin from time to time thou shalt drink. Verse 16, moreover, he said unto me, son of man, behold, I will break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight and with care. Okay, because there won't be enough. Famine, all right, and so on and so forth. And they shall drink water by measure and with astonishment, man. You see? So you can clearly see how these prophecies, all right, is speaking. All right. And, let's get that in the book of Deuteronomy. Shall go to him in want of all things. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 48, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee, man. Okay? So, yeah, man, that's exactly it.
Oregon man was convicted.
We go to him in want of all things. But even, these Edomites who, try to, all right, benefit in their, rulership, a lot of them are also, all right, receiving, some, consequences, all right, because of Esau's laws and, things in which she put in place, all right. They're not benefiting, off of their own kingdom. Two-time losers, man. That's what you call that. All right, so I just wanted to bring that out. Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua willing, it was edifying. Until next time, Shalom, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua Barakatah.